never saw the last one coming. Nobody did. On the morning of February 15, 2013, people in Chelyabinsk were driving to work in the dark when a second sun lit up the sky. A rock about 20 meters across had come in from the direction of the sun, out of the one blind spot no telescope on Earth can watch. And nothing knew it was there until it was already burning brighter than the sunrise. And it never reached the ground. It broke apart 18 miles up, and the shock wave did the rest. Windows blew inward across 6 cities at once. 7,000 buildings took damage. 1,500 people ended up in hospitals, and most of them were hurt by their own glass, because they had run to the window to film the light and were still standing there when the blast arrived 2 minutes later. 20 meters, half the length of a basketball court, and it hit with the force of about 30 Hiroshima bombs, with no warning at all. Hold that number, because in 3 years the exact opposite is going to happen. A rock 17 times wider is coming, and we have known its name and its schedule for a quarter of a century. It is named after the Egyptian god of chaos. The serpent, the old stories said, tried to swallow the sun each night. On Friday the 13th of April, 2029, it will pass closer to you than the satellites that carry your phone signal. It will not hit us. And that is exactly what makes it the most important asteroid in human history. By the end of this, you will understand why the miss matters more than any hit, and why the real danger was never this one at all. Start with where it goes, because the geometry alone is hard to believe. On that Friday, an object called Apophis will pass about 31,000 kilometers above the Atlantic. The satellites that carry your television and your weather forecast sit higher than that, out near 36,000. Apophis comes in underneath them, 1/10 of the way to the moon, threading the gap between us and our own machines. This is not a faint smudge for professionals with big telescopes. For one night, roughly 2 billion people across Europe, Africa, and Western Asia will step outside and see it with nothing but their eyes. A point of light brighter than the stars in the handle of the Big Dipper, sliding across the sky fast enough that you can watch it move over the course of a few minutes. Most things up there look frozen. This one crosses the width of 2 full moons every minute. 4 times as many people as ever watched the first moon landing, all looking up at the same rock on the same night. And here is the part that should sit with you. For almost every close pass in the history of the solar system, there was nobody here to see it. No eyes, no instruments, no record. This time is different. We caught this one 25 years early, and we have had it on a calendar ever since. So if we know where it goes, down to the kilometer, why is every space agency on Earth treating April 2029 like the exam of the century? To understand that, you have to go back to the week Apophis terrified everyone who was tracking it, June 19th, 2004. 3 astronomers at Kitt Peak in Arizona, Roy Tucker, David Choklin, and Fabrizio Bernardi, catch a faint dot drifting against the stars where nothing should be. They track it for 2 nights. Then the weather closes in, the equipment gives them trouble, and the dot slips away before they can pin its path. For the next 6 months, the rock is lost. One more anonymous streak in an old data file. An Australian team stumbles back onto it that December. And this time, when the orbit is finally run, the room goes quiet. This rock has a 2.7% chance of hitting Earth in the year 2029, 1 in 37. Put a different way, if you were told your flight had a 1 in 37 chance of going down, you would not get on the plane. That number does not sound like the end of the world until you know what it meant in context. Astronomers rank asteroid threats on a scale of 0 to 10. Apophis hit level 4. Nothing before it, and nothing since, has ever rated that high. For a few days over Christmas of 2004, this was the single most dangerous object humanity had ever found, sitting at the top of the hazard list with a date already attached to it. Then the science did its job, in the quietest way imaginable. On December 27th, someone went digging through old images and found one from the previous March, taken weeks before anyone knew to look for this thing. That single forgotten picture stretched the known orbit backward in time. More arc means sharper math, and the sharper math erased the 2029 impact completely. In 1 week, we had found this rock, nearly lost it for good, watched it climb to the top of the danger list, and then pulled it back from the edge with a photograph nobody knew they had. But there is a trap in that relief. "It will not hit in 2029" is not the same sentence as "it will never hit," so they kept hammering it. Radar does something a camera cannot. It fires a beam of radio waves at the rock and reads the faint echo that comes back. And from the timing and the smear of that echo, you can measure distance and speed and even shape, far more tightly than any picture. Array, SIBO in Puerto Rico, and Goldstone in California tracked Apophis in 2005 and 2006 and closed the door on 2029 for good. Goldstone came back in 2013 and ruled out a second scare that had crept in for 2036. Then, in March 2021, Goldstone and the Green Bank dish read the echo one final time and settled the whole question. That campaign fixed its distance to within a few hundred meters and its speed to a fraction of a mile per hour, tight enough to run the orbit a full century forward and trust the answer. Apophis will not strike Earth for at least 100 years. We now know its address better than we know almost any object of its kind. And yet a force you have probably never heard of almost kept that door propped open. Sunlight lands on the rock and warms it. The rock carries that heat around as it turns and lets it go a little later, off the afternoon side, as a faint puff of infrared. Every puff is a tiny shove in one direction. It sounds like nothing at all. But it never stops, and over decades it drags Apophis inward about 200 meters every single year. Why would a nudge that gentle matter to anyone? Because out beyond 2029 there are narrow spots in space that scientists call keyholes, some of them less than 100 meters wide. Pass through one and Earth's gravity would bend the orbit onto a future collision. 100 meters is nothing across the width of the solar system, which means a force no stronger than sunlight was enough to decide whether Apophis slips through that needle in 2051 or 2068. That is why the radar teams were so obsessive. They were not measuring for the fun of it. They were checking whether a whisper of heat could quietly undo the all clear. It could not. The path is locked. The object, though, is still a stranger. Here is where knowing the address stops helping you. We have measured the orbit of Apophis better than we have measured Apophis. And the first real clue to what it is came from one stubborn number that refused to fit. It weighs far too little for its size. Density is the giveaway. It tells you what a thing is built from. Solid stony rock, the kind in a mountain on Earth, runs about 3 grams per cubic centimeter. Apophis comes in near 1.75, barely more than half. There's only one clean way to explain a number like that. The asteroid cannot be a single solid boulder. Close to 40% of it by volume is empty space. It is not a mountain flying through the dark. It is a loose heap of gravel, boulders, sand, and dust. Thousands of separate pieces held together by nothing but their own faint gravity. Scientists call it a rubble pile, and we are not guessing. We have gone and touched things exactly like it. When Japan's Hayabusa spacecraft reached a small asteroid called Itokawa, it found a pile of loose rock with almost no solid core. When NASA's OSIRIS-REx reached down to grab a sample from the asteroid Bin-U, the surface behaved like a pit of packing peanuts, and the spacecraft sank in deeper than anyone expected before it backed away. Apophis looks like another one of these. Not a rock you could shatter, but a pile you could rearrange if you pulled on it hard enough. And a pile like this comes with a built-in weak point. When radar finally imaged its shape in 2021, it was not the lumpy potato everyone pictured. It was pinched in the middle, two separate lumps joined by a narrow neck. Every scientist who described it reached for the same word: peanut. The best guess is that two smaller rocks drifted toward each other billions of years ago, touched at walking speed and stayed stuck, held together by the weakest grip in nature, their own gravity. This is not rare. Roughly 15% of near-Earth asteroids larger than 200 meters are built as two lobes like this. Now think about anything you have ever held that was made of two pieces joined at one point. Where does it fail? Never through the solid middle of either piece. It fails at the seam. The neck of Apophis is its seam, the narrowest and most fragile part of the entire body, the one place where the two halves barely hold on to each other. Keep that picture, because in 2029, Earth is going to reach out and pull hardest at exactly that point. And the way it moves tells the same story from another direction. Most objects, given enough time, settle into a clean, steady spin, the way Earth turns smoothly on its axis. Apophis refuses to. It tumbles, rolling around one axis about every 31 hours while slowly rocking along another that takes almost 11 days, like a football thrown by someone who has never thrown one in their life. That messy tumble is a fingerprint. A smooth, evenly packed rock spins clean. A lumpy, half-empty one, denser in some places and hollow in others, tumbles exactly like this. The motion is the hidden interior writing its signature on the outside. And what it is writing is that the inside of this thing is uneven, loose, and nothing like a solid rock. That interior is the one number we have never been able to measure. In 2029, our own planet is going to measure it for us, by squeezing. You already know the force that does the squeezing, because you have felt it your whole life. It is the same one that lifts the ocean twice a day. Gravity weakens with distance, so the near side of Apophis gets pulled harder than the far side, and the whole body stretches along the line between them. On the ocean, that stretch makes the tides. On a loose pile of rubble passing 31,000 kilometers overhead, it becomes something far stranger, because the rock is also tumbling. Different parts of it keep rolling into the line of maximum strain and back out again, over and over for the hours around closest approach. Earth does not tug it once and release it. It works the asteroid like a pair of hands kneading dough. So what do the models predict? Groups that built Apophis inside a computer out of thousands of loose particles agree on the headline. The spin will change, and it will change by enough to measure from Earth. Quakes begin about an hour before the closest approach and roll through the body as it settles. On the steeper slopes, landslides let go. Rock that has been sealed away since the birth of the solar system slides into sunlight for the first time. The squeeze itself is small, a few centimeters of flexing, and the body springs most of it back. But we could sit and watch an asteroid partly resurface itself over a single afternoon live. You have probably seen the louder version of this online. The neck snaps. A piece breaks free. It slips through one of those keyholes and comes back around to finish us. I want to be fair to it because the seed is real, seams are weak. But the math does not survive the leap. The detailed models show centimeter scale flexing that reverses itself, not a break. Apophis passes well outside the distance where gravity could ever pull it apart. And even in the wild case where the neck did give way, the two halves would drift apart at a few centimeters a second, parting by a few meters over hours. Nowhere near enough to thread a needle less than a kilometer wide that the whole rock was already going to miss. The honest story is not that it shatters. It is that we finally get to open a sealed box we have been staring at for 20 years, and to feel why that box is worth opening, Look at what a rock like this does on the days it does not miss. Go back to Chelyabinsk for a second. 20 meters, coming in unseen, and it still put 1,500 people in hospitals without ever reaching the ground. Now climb the ladder. In the summer of 1908, a rock maybe 50 to 60 meters across came apart in the sky over Tunguiska in remote Siberia. There is no crater because it never landed. It detonated a few miles up, and the air burst alone flattened 2,000 square kilometers of forest, every tree slammed flat and pointing away from a single center. At a trading post 65 kilometers away, a man was thrown clean off his porch by the blast. The shockwave circled the planet twice, and for days afterward, the night skies over Europe glowed bright enough to read a newspaper by at midnight. Drop that same event over a city instead of empty taiga, and the city is gone. Keep climbing. 50,000 years ago, a lump of iron barely 30 meters wide hit the Arizona desert at around 30,000 miles an hour. It did not burst in the air. It struck with the force of about 20 million tons of TNT and punched a bowl in the ground a kilometer across and nearly 200 meters deep. You can still drive out and stand on the rim of it today. Now put Apophis on that ladder. 340 meters. If it ever did hit, it would arrive with the energy of about 1,200 megatons. Something like 2,000 Chelyabinsk's going off in the same instant, or 80 Tunguiskas. It would dig a crater 5 kilometers wide and lay waste to an area the size of a small country. It would not end the world. There is no impact winter here, no mass extinction, and pretending otherwise would be a lie. But there is the honest weight of it. Chelyabinsk was 20 meters, and we never saw it coming. Pia. S is 17 times wider, and we have watched it approach for 25 years. That gap between the two is the whole point of this story, which is why 2029 is not a spectacle. It is a rehearsal. So the question becomes, who is going to be watching, and how closely? Start with you, because you are one of the instruments. On that night, if your sky is clear, you step outside, and a star that is not a star begins to crawl across the dark, moving faster than anything up there has any right to move. No telescope, no app, just your eyes and the knowledge of where to look. And 2 billion other people are standing under the same sky doing the same thing at the same moment. For once in our long, one-sided history with these rocks, the whole world gets to watch the event happen, together instead of reading about it the next morning. Behind the crowd come the machines, and the first one has one of the great second acts in spaceflight. NASA's OSIRIS-REx already flew out to the asteroid Bennu, grabbed a sample, and parachuted it into the Utah desert in 2023. That spacecraft is still healthy and still flying, so NASA gave it a new name and a new target. It is OSIRIS-APEX now, and its whole job is to chase Apophis down. It reaches the asteroid right around the flyby, passing about an hour behind it as the pair sweeps past Earth, then borrows Earth's gravity as a slingshot to catch up a week later. It settles in for 18 months, mapping the surface and reading the chemistry. And at one point it drops to within about 5 meters of the ground and fires its thrusters straight down, blasting the dust off a patch of surface to expose the fresh material underneath. Europe and Japan are sending a second craft, Ramses, built to arrive 2 months early so it can measure the rock in its untouched state, then ride alongside through the flyby itself. It carries its own cameras and radar to map the shape, clock the spin, and catch the quakes, building a before and after down to the meter, with 2 small CubeSats flying even closer. And on the ground, every large dish on Earth will be locked on, hammering the asteroid with radio in the exact hours it is being stretched. A clean before and after, of a world being reshaped by a planet, watched from every angle at once. It has never been done. So why pour 2 spacecraft and a planet's worth of telescopes at a rock we already know will slide right past? Because we have already taken our first real shot in the dark, and it taught us how little we knew. In 2022, NASA flew a spacecraft called DART straight into a small asteroid moon named Dimorphos on purpose to see if we could move it. It worked. The little moon's orbit tightened by 33 minutes. The first time human beings ever deliberately changed the motion of another world. But the real lesson was the surprise. Dimorphos turned out to be a rubble pile too. And when DART hit, it did not just leave a dent. It splashed. A huge plume of debris blew off the surface, and the recoil from that plume shoved the asteroid harder than the impact by itself ever could. Hit a solid rock, and it moves like a solid rock. Hit a loose pile, and it might swallow the blow or splash and lurch, or crack into pieces that all keep coming. You cannot plan that maneuver without knowing what is inside. And what is inside is exactly what Apophis is about to hand us, for free. There's a whole toolbox waiting behind DART, a gravity tractor that hovers nearby and pulls the rock off course over decades, if you have decades. Ion beams that push with a steady jet. And the nuclear option, a genuine last resort that could blow most of a small asteroid clear, but risks turning one incoming rock into several. Every one of them lives or dies on the same 2 questions: how much warning you have and what the thing is made of. Find it early, and you nudge it with a feather. Find it late, and you are gambling with a bomb. But every one of those options assumes the same first step. You can only deflect a thing you have found. Back in 2005, Congress handed NASA a target. Find 90% of the near-Earth asteroids bigger than 140 meters, the ones big enough to erase a city, and do it by 2020. There are roughly 25,000 of them out there. 20 years past that deadline, we have found about 44%. Less than half. At the rate we are going, it will take another 30 years to finish the list. A new telescope called CNEOS Surveyor is set to launch around 2027, the first machine ever built for the single purpose of hunting these things. And it will hunt in infrared, so it can finally see the ones hiding in the glare of the sun. The exact blind spot that Chelyabinsk came out of. Until then, most of the city killers are still out there in the dark. Uncounted, unnamed. And Chelyabinsk is the reminder of what one of them feels like when it arrives without an invitation. So here is where it leaves us. Apophis is not the threat. Apophis is the one we caught. That is why it is safe, and that is also why it is priceless. It is a full dress rehearsal handed to a species that has only ever practiced once. The real question was never this rock at all. It is the ratio. For every Apophis we track 25 years out, how many are still out there that we have never once seen? And are we even pointed in the right direction? On Friday the 13th of April 2029, the god of chaos passes overhead and gives us a free lesson. The only thing left to decide is whether we bother to use it, before the next one comes out of the sun with no warning at all. That's as far as this one goes, but the edge always moves. This is Aphelo. Subscribe, drop a like if it earned it, and your next one's on screen now. I'll meet you a little further out.